How are we doing? Listen to this story. It's now from the Kav HaYashar. This is a story that is an unusual story. Now, the question is, how much are you aware of history? That means in Russia growing up, did you study world history?
Yeah.
You studied history of the world, of England and Spain and France and America. Okay, what about you guys? Well, what grade are you in? You're in 11th grade. 12th grade. So you did world history, the global studies.
And US.
Yeah, did you pass the region?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking on you. You're on tape. They're all going to watch you. You know? You never know how many girls are watching, hearing this guy they're going to follow, 12th grade, he passed all the regions, smart guy.
Well, they don't see him.
We're going to,
They don't see him.
well, we're going to have to show him one of these days. Then you're going to get, the phones are going to start ringing, you're going to be busy. Okay.
You want me to turn it?
That's why this guy sits over here. So listen to this story. In 1951, there was an exhibition, which means a display, in London, England, to commemorate 300 years that Jewish people were allowed back in England under Oliver Cromwell. Here is the background. In 1290, which is about 800 years ago, King Edward I issued a law throwing all Jews out of England. Did you know that? Now, in Spain had the Spanish Inquisition, they threw out the Jews. 1496 or something. In 1290, England threw out all the Jews. And this law was in effect for 361 years, until 1651, that the Jews were allowed back. In this exhibition, there was a fellow, Yaakov Lunzer. He was the custodian from a vast trust library, one of the finest private libraries of Hebrew books in the world, that is housed in Westminster Abbey. Where is Westminster Abbey? In the palace of the Queen. And in that library, there was a set of Talmud, the Bamberg Talmud, printed in 1523, in perfect condition. One of the only complete sets of Talmud found in the library of Buckingham Palace. Well, what in heaven's name was a Shas going back 300, 400 years doing in the palace of the king and queens of England? This is what he found out. In 1525, King Henry VIII, in 1509, King Henry VIII, did you ever hear of King Henry VIII of England? Took the throne when he was 17. His brother had died. His brother was married to Catherine of Aragon, the daughter of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. King Henry wanted to marry Catherine, but the Pope said no. The Catholic Church said no. You cannot marry, according to the Bible, your brother's wife. Right? But he wanted to marry her. So one of his advisors said to him, you know, the Jews have a way around this. Contact the rabbi. He'll help you. The rabbi said to him that since your brother was married for a short time, he had no children. So when the brother dies, we allow the brother to do either Yibum or Chalitza. This week's Parsha, Yibum or Chalitza. So you can do what's called the Levirate marriage, known as Yibum. And you can marry your brother's wife to have children from her.
But the children are not going to be his, it's going to be the brother's.
Well, the first one maybe, but he really didn't care. He's not even Jewish.
Oh, he's not Jewish?
The King Henry sent this letter of the rabbi to the Pope. And the Pope agreed. He says that's true. The Talmud talks about Yibum. You can marry your brother's wife. And he married Catherine. He married Catherine. Over 15 years of being married to her, she was pregnant many times, lost the children, never had a son from her, only had one daughter. But he didn't want a daughter. He wanted a son. Must have been Bukhari. I don't know. He wanted a son. He didn't want these daughters. He didn't want a girl. He didn't want a girl. So now he wanted to divorce Catherine. He already had someone else waiting. I think his next wife was Anne Boleyn. He had 6 wives or 7 wives. He must have been a very popular king. All the women wanted to marry him. Anyway, so he wants to divorce her. But according to the Catholic Church, can you divorce her?
No.
No. So the Pope said, no, you can't divorce her. Divorce was forbidden for a Catholic king.
Go to Rabbi.
Called her.
So he said to the Pope, then annul the marriage. And the Pope says, no, we have a letter. The marriage is valid. The rabbi said. So what did Henry do? He went back to the rabbi. And the rabbi says that this is discussed in the Talmud. So Henry says, no problem. Get me that Talmud. And he ordered a set of Talmud, which he put into his library.
Wow.
And the rabbi then said, one of the famous Jewish rabbis who written a series of books, that this idea of a levirate marriage only applies to Jews. It doesn't apply to non-Jews. And therefore, the Pope has no authority to change the laws of the Bible. He has to follow the laws of the Bible. You had no right to marry your brother's wife. Therefore, your marriage is null and void, and you're free to marry again. The Pope did not agree. And therefore, he condemned King Henry VIII for violating Catholic law, and he excommunicated him from the Roman Catholic Church. You should know the queens and kings of England were very religious with the Catholic Church. They were Roman Catholic.
Put him in here.
They put him in cherem. That's right. Henry then denounced his Catholic upbringing, so he put the church in cherem and embraced Reformation. And then he went on to marry 5 more times. Well, the second wife, he didn't want to divorce her because he didn't like this divorce thing. This divorce didn't work very well. So I think the second wife took her to the Tower of London, and she lost about 6 inches, 7 inches was her head. The third wife, King Henry VIII, they write songs and stories about him. But he was married 6 times. And I guess when Catherine and him got divorced, England and Spain went to war. There was all these wars, England and Spain, England and France. But it's fascinating that they brought the Jews back to England, and what the rabbis had to say was more important to him than what the Catholic Church had to say. And as a consequence, he is responsible for the Westminster Abbey having one of the oldest sets in perfect condition of the Talmud that was ever printed. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.